Okay guys, welcome back to another one of my streams. Today we are going to be looking at paper 2, which obviously a number of you are going to be sitting tomorrow. So I would have liked to get this, I would have liked to have got this up a little bit sooner. However, due to the fact that I have taught a full day of teaching today, it's meant that it's come up a little bit later than I'd hoped. So this is going to be pretty much a recap. There is a couple of things I'm not going to cover during this PEP session. However, at the end I am going to list them so you can go away and do those beforehand. One thing that I do want to reiterate is this should not be the only revision you've done watching my video today. You should be at least doing a bit of independent research, and you should have been doing that now for a number of days. So we're going to go ahead and start, and we'll try and talk a lot less in this one. So here we go. So let's start off then. So the first thing that's probably going to be on this paper is a little bit about networks. So it's going to ask you about what a network is, and the first thing that you need to be saying is that a network is a series of computers or devices that are connected together and are able to share data and resources. Okay. Another thing they might ask you is to give an example of a rather large network or the biggest network you can think of, and obviously that one is going to be the internet. A lot of us connect to the internet every day. Obviously if you're listening and watching this stream now, you're using the internet. So the internet is in fact the biggest network we've got. So key terms in that question are going to be: a network allows a series, okay, which means more than one, computer or other devices, such as a network printer, to connect together and share resources and data. Okay, then moving forward. So we have got what are the advantages and disadvantages of a network? So the key advantages of a network are the fact that you are able to share resources, such as share the printer. You're able to share a shared drive, such as a NAS, network attached storage. So obviously if you've got some family photos on a NAS, and then you've got multiple computers, a laptop, a desktop PC, even a phone, even an iPad connected, you are able to access those files from the NAS, and all those devices can share a printer as well. So obviously that can save costs, because not every device has to have its own printer. Access your files from anywhere on the network, exactly what I just said. It relates also, so the fact that I can access my NAS from my computer, I can access it from my phone, I can access it from my iPad. Fantastic. Okay. Next up then, data is easy to back up. So obviously if I've got a network, I can set up backup routines so that the data will move across relatively easily. It's kind of common sense, isn't it? And then obviously the advantage of network is we can have internal messaging services and internal mail services, as well as external ones. The disadvantage of having a network is obviously hardware, such as switches, routers, hubs, network cabling, dedicated firewalls and things like that can be really expensive, and also it might incur a cost of needing a network manager or someone that understands networks to come in and install that for you. Managing a large network is complicated, so as I just said, you probably need a network manager if you're not familiar with it. Virus attacks on network may affect every computer. That is the issue. You've got to remember, a network means that all of the computers are connected in some way. So therefore, if my computer got a virus, it could mean that my laptop could also get that virus if it was transferred across the network. So that is a risk you have to take into consideration. Okay, relating to the page we've just seen, the question that you get on that is to list advantages and disadvantages. If it was a 4-mark question and it said just list advantages, obviously you'd be expected to give all 4 advantages on the left. If it was a 4-mark question, it said give examples of disadvantages and advantages, you could go either give 2 from the left, 2 from the right, 4 from the left, and 4 from the right. 3 from the right. Depends. Obviously, you can spice it up. So if it says you have to give advantages and disadvantages, you need to give from both sides of the argument. If it just says give advantages or disadvantages, then it's open choice. You can do what you want. Just be careful there with the keywords. Okay, then. Moving forward. Key factors that can affect a network. So the speed of it, the cost, the security, the availability of the network, the scalability, how big it's going to be, the reliability, and topologies. Topologies for me is the big one here, because if you look at topologies as a whole, the topologies can affect all of the above. So obviously, depending on which topology you choose, can affect cost, certainly on the amount of cable you would need in order to implement some of the topologies. security as well can obviously affect security. We're going to look at wireless and wired networks a little bit later on. Okay, so moving forward. So the two main networks you're going to need to know about are in fact wired and wireless networks. They both have their advantages and they both have their disadvantages. Now you commonly might have seen these two logos before in the bottom right hand corner of your screen. So if you're connected to a wireless network, which is this one here, you've probably seen that logo or that icon before in the bottom right hand side of your computer. If you are connected to a wired network, i.e. through an Ethernet cable, normally straight back to your router, you'll probably see this symbol in the bottom corner. One thing I am going to reiterate that I haven't never seen on an exam to date, but it wouldn't surprise me if it did this year. So this symbol here, I hear a lot of people say that this is indicating that you have an internet connection. In fact, it is not indicating that you have an internet connection at all. It's nothing to do with that. These bars indicate how much signal, okay, you are getting from your router or your access points. Normally, it's indicating how far away you are and how strong the connection is. So for example, if this top bar was missing, this second bar was missing, and I've just got this third one, it would mean here that I've got quite a weak signal. I'm probably quite a good way away from my router or access point. If I've got all three of them, it means that I've got a great signal to my router or my access point. It does not indicate that I have an internet connection at all. Okay? The wired one, obviously wired one just indicates that you are connected via a wire to the network. Okay, then moving forward. Okay? Benefits of wired. Okay? If you've got a wired connection, okay, it's faster. The connection is faster, okay, it's more reliable, you get a higher bandwidth on wired, so it's quicker data transfer, and the security is greater. One of the reasons the security is greater on wired is the fact that you would have to physically be in the building to be able to plug into the router or to the switch. Okay, whereas with wireless, wireless is obviously transmitting a radio frequency of the wireless signal, okay, out over a large area, okay, or even a small area, depending on how many antennas you've got or the range of your antenna. And obviously that means that you don't necessarily have to be in the building to launch an attack on it or attempt to connect to the network. So obviously wired has a greater security. It's greater security in the sense that it's inside the building. You have to physically plug in. Wireless, you can actually just pick up the signal and you can attempt to connect to it. Okay, you might not necessarily be successful, but you can. Okay, wireless. It's easy to connect new devices. Obviously, you guys have heard of an SSID, which is obviously the name of your network. And then you'll obviously connect to the network for a WPA, SKA or a WEP key, which is normally the password you type in when you connect it to someone's Wi-Fi or your own Wi-Fi for the first time. Okay? Great thing about Wi-Fi as well is the fact that you don't have to sit like I am now in front of the screen. You don't have to sit statically. You can be moving around the building and you're still able to use that device. Whereas wired, just like my computer now I'm sitting in front of, it's connected to a wireless connection. I can't pick it up and move around and do what I'm doing, so there's a little bit of restriction there. Okay, risks of wired cables are hazardous, so obviously if they're not tied up neatly, they can be a trip hazard. It can lead to people becoming injured. Not all devices can connect via cable. For example, if I take my iPad or my iPhone or my Android tablet or even an Android phone, those do not have an Ethernet port on the side of them, so therefore I cannot connect wired with a wired connection. And also, installing some wired networks can be expensive because you need additional hardware sometimes, such as a switch, such as large amounts of Ethernet cable, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on. Okay, the risks of wireless: it has a slower connection than wired. Obviously, because it's transmitting it wirelessly, it's not got a direct route to it. Okay, and it is subject to interference. I bet you didn't know this. Your microwave in your house is somewhere that you don't want to be putting your router by because they operate on a very similar frequency, so they can interfere with each other quite easily. And obviously it's less secure for the reasons I said earlier. Okay, moving forward. So, we're going to look at now LAN. The two main ones that will probably come up on your exam are what is the difference between a WAN and a LAN. So let's start off with the LAN. You're going to be expected to know what LAN stands for. So LAN stands for, as wrote here on the screen, Local Area Network. So this means that it's in a small geographical space. Okay, normally a home network, that's normally a local area network, a small office or a school. Okay, it's most of the time over a single site, okay, using their own cabling system, okay. It's a relatively small area, okay. So WAN is the direct opposite of that. WAN stands for wide area network, okay. It's any network which is basically over a larger space, okay, using a third party basically, such as British Telecom, which is obviously the phone lines that we use to connect to the internet. So for example, a wide area network is in fact the internet, okay. A WAN uses various cables such as telephone lines, satellites, radio waves, okay, copper cabling, fibre optic cabling, depending on what network we're looking at. So a good example would be two offices connected together over a large area such as Paris and London. The example I'm going to use here is something like the RAC. So the RAC has obviously a base in the West Midlands, and they've probably got one in Manchester. So for example, if my car broke down in the West Midlands and they only had a site in Manchester, that would mean I'd be waiting a long time for call them up, speak to their Manchester site, they log it on their system, and then that means that they're going to send a vehicle from Manchester. Whereas if they've got a site in the West Midlands and one in Manchester, and I've broken down in the West Midlands, I may get put through to the Manchester office, but when they log it on their system, okay, because it's a wide area network and the networks are connected together, my location would also ping on the West Midlands system, which means that it would be far more logical for them to send a car to me from the West Midlands site. Okay, so there's one advantage of why you might want to do it. Okay, excellent. Moving forward, you might be asked about connection types for networks. So what I've got here, the most common one in housing is copper. Okay, when you plug your Ethernet cable into the back of your router, it has an Ethernet cable, and when you plug it into the back of the NIC card on your computer, this is for a wired connection by the way, okay, or the NIC card, okay, network interface card, okay, that is basically a wired connection, okay, and it's using a copper cable called Ethernet cable. Now Ethernet cable, as we've progressed with technology, it started out obviously right at Cat 1, but obviously we don't tend to remember that now, it's really old. We've got Cat 5, Cat 5e, Cat 6 and Cat 7. Cat 5 and Cat 5e, okay, they have a slightly slower transfer speed than Cat 6, and Cat 6 has a slower transfer speed than Cat 7. So Cat 5 is in fact the slowest, then Cat 5e is slightly faster than Cat 5, Cat 6 is slightly faster than Cat 5e, and Cat 7 is obviously faster than Cat 6. And that comes down to basically the way in which they are cabled and how they are put together. If you look at this one here on the left hand side, you can see that the cables are twisted inside of the Ethernet cable. Okay, inside of these strands here, each of those would be copper. Now they are twisted to reduce the chance of interference. Okay, now we have different ones such as twisted pair, which is the ones you can see here on the left. We have twisted shielded pair, which they're twisted and then shielded with an additional substance to stop them being exposed to further interference. So as long as you know that one of the connection mediums for networking is copper and it's Ethernet cable, that should be absolutely fine. You are not expected to know for this exam the exact speeds of Cat 5, Cat 5e, Cat 6 and Cat 7. Okay, I could give them you, but it'd be completely pointless. They're not on your exam. Okay, fibre optic cable. This is another method of transferring data on a network. Now, going back to Ethernet, Ethernet uses copper, okay, and it uses electronical signals. Okay, whereas fibre optic cable uses light. You can see here, look in this picture, at the ends there is light coming out of the end of it, and the data is transferred via extremely high bandwidth, okay, using light. And we're going to come to bandwidth a little bit later on. I'm going to explain that in massive detail for you. Okay, here we go, bandwidth. So, bandwidth, what is bandwidth? Bandwidth is the maximum amount of data that can travel through a channel, okay? The best way I can describe it to you is it's a bit like a motorway. Okay, so here is a motorway with 4 lanes, okay, and this would equate to my bandwidth. Now bandwidth is a bit of a lie really. Whenever you take out a new package with an ISP, an Internet Service Provider, okay, that might be on your exam by the way, Internet Service Provider, ISP, they provide you with your internet connection. Okay, basically they provide you with a user account that allows you to go onto the internet server, for example Sky, BT, PlusNet, TalkTalk, etc. So obviously, bandwidth is the maximum data that can be travel through the channel, okay, at one point, okay, the maximum. That means that life is all great and there is no problems. It is in a perfect scenario. At best, if there is nobody else using it and all of the hardware that you are using and all the hardware that the data is going to be passed through is the best of the best, that is the speed that you can expect from your line, okay. However, if we apply this, throughput is how much data is actually transferred between the two locations. So if we take into consideration factors such as I might have a network interface card that is capable of 1,000 megabits per second transfer, okay? 1,000 megabits per second transfer, okay? However, my router may only be capable of 100 megabits per second. So therefore, the data would transfer at the speed of the slowest device, which is obviously my router at that point, okay? So therefore, that affects, okay, the speed in which the data is transferring. So throughput is the actual amount transferred between locations, okay, whereas the bandwidth is basically the maximum. The throughput is how much it's actually making it through. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a better example of that. So if I move forward again, okay, and sorry, let's look at this first. If we look at reducing bandwidth, so here, look, if I've brought a lesser package, such as a 17 megabits per second one, okay, it might look something like that. Okay, so this could be something like a 32 megabits per second, and this one might be a 17 megabits per second. Okay, that's the maximum that I can achieve. Okay, but this is actually what I'm getting. Okay, the cars are representing my throughput there. Okay, so now if I look at this one here, okay, this is throughput on my network. Okay, well, actually it's not my network. I pinched it off a royalty-free photo website earlier. So this one shows that I get 38.7 megabits per second. Okay, so that is showing that the throughput, the actual speed I'm getting, is 38.79. Okay, that's taking into consideration things such as how far away I am from the exchange, okay, which is the green box at the end of your road. Okay, it's taking into consideration if I'm on a fibre optic connection, it's taking into consideration am I on a copper connection, it's taking into consideration the amount of people that are sharing the bandwidth in my area at this point, okay, and obviously those all play factors to how much traffic there is on the network, so it's impacting, it's affecting my actual speed. Whereas when you come to buy a connection from someone like your ISP, won't name any there, they might be selling you 76 megabits per second and actually you're getting 38.76. So what you're getting is throughput, what the maximum you can get is bandwidth. There we go. Okay, that's the maximum bandwidth you can get. Okay, right. Another type of network. So far we have covered LAN. Remember that stands for local area network, and it is in a small geographical space. Okay. WAN, wide area network. It's normally over multiple sites. Okay, and it's normally over a larger geographical area. Okay. A personal area network. This is something that is usually, okay, on the body of a single person. Okay, not necessarily on the body, but usually. Okay, or is used by somebody on their body. So, for example, a smartwatch, that is a personal area network device, and a set of wireless earphones is also a personal area network device. Okay, normally they are connected via Bluetooth, and all of the devices are within a very close area, normally a few meters. So, for example, my Bluetooth watch connects to my phone. If I separate those two by a good probably 10-15 meters, okay, you'll notice that the phone no longer connects to the Apple Watch, which is breaking the network connection there. Okay, tethering devices. Okay, that's another one, such as tethering your phone. So an iPad or a tablet is able to get to access the internet. That's exactly the same, but obviously that is using Bluetooth to pass the Wi-Fi connection, so that's a little bit more advanced. Okay, so this one is going to be absolutely massive on your exam. The topologies, network topologies, okay? Even if you don't remember all of the advantages and disadvantages I'm going to go through in a minute, okay, there is something that is going to really, really help you here. The diagrams actually are drawn that way to help you remember the key points. So in a star network, each device on the network has its own cable that connects to the switch or hub. So the switch or hub would be located here in the middle. Okay? This is one of the most popular ways to set up a local area network. You may find that a star network is also a small network of 5 or 6 computers where speed is a priority. Okay? So this here would obviously be my my hub or my switch. Okay? So let's move forward a little bit further and have a look at the advantages and disadvantages. So now I've drawn it in a real world scenario for you. Okay, so here look, I've got a printer connected to it. I've got a couple of terminals or nodes, as you might want to call them. Okay, we see them as workstations, that would be acceptable as well. And here is a switch or a hub. Okay, I've also got a server that is connected. Okay, by the same star method. So it looks like a star. In a real world scenario, if it was implemented, it would not be. It would not look like that. That diagram is for the sole purposes of you remembering the advantages and disadvantages. So what are the advantages of a star network? Fast data transfer, as there are fewer collisions. That's because, look, each device has its own connection to the switch or hub. So there is no way that the data from this one going to the switch or hub can collide with this one, okay? Because they've got their own cables. If one cable fails, the other workstations are not affected. So for example, if someone was to cut through this cable, or it was to become faulty for some other reason, okay, all of the other devices, such as this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one, and this one, would all still be able to communicate with the switch or hub, which is fantastic news. Okay. Disadvantages: it requires additional hardware, such as a central hub or switch, which is obviously this one here, and those can be expensive, depending on what you're trying to achieve with your network and the speeds that you require. Okay, depends on the quality of the one you would need, so therefore it could become very expensive. Now the main issue is if the central device fails. In other words, this one loses power, i.e. we have a power cut, okay, or maybe it just goes faulty and decides it's going to turn itself off and not come back on. Okay, all of these then would not be able to communicate any longer. Okay, because this guy in the middle is responsible for moving the data around the network. Okay, if we go back to this one here and you look at that diagram in the exam, you can kind of work that out, even if you don't understand what it is. So if you're given this one, it's kind of obvious that they've each got their own cable connecting to the middle item, which is obviously the hub or switch. Okay, and I'm going to say this again: if you're in the exam and you've forgotten, you're not 100% sure, just make sure you write down something and have a go. Look at the diagram and try and work out what it could be logically. I think just looking at the diagram, those answers there are completely obvious. You might be asked in the exam to name one of these. So what is this diagram? Obviously you'll be expected to say star. The shape of it is designed to make you be able to spot it. Okay, and it looks like a star, obviously. Okay, the bus topology. The bus topology network is used, obviously, in networks again. It's in the topology. All of the workstations, servers, and printers are joined by one cable. Okay, the bus. That's this guy down the middle. Okay, and at the end, it normally has what we call terminators. We'll come to those just shortly. Each end of the cable terminator basically stops the signal going any further, and they're reflected back down the bus. Okay, so it's basically to stop the data running all the way down here and thinking, I can't find the node that I'm after, or the workstation, or the device. So basically it gets to here, realises it's the end of the network, and bounces back. And I'm going to show you those now. Okay, so the advantages of a bus topology. Less cables are needed, so it's cheaper to set up. Okay, obviously less cables because we've got one big main cable, and all these are just little small cables connecting to it. Okay, that is called the backbone as well, by the way. Backbone cable. Okay, it's easy to install, less cables needed, so it's really cheap to set up. Okay, one issue is because they're all sharing a cable, if this one sends data at the same time as this one, the data can collide depending on where it's going. Okay, so data can collide. So for example, if this one and this one are both this one and this one are both sending information to this one, the data might collide depending if this one sent it first and then this one needs it, etc. Okay, if this guy and this guy send data to this one, the data might collide. Okay, might get loose packets, etc. Okay. We've just gone over those, so let's look at the terminators. So I nearly said the Terminator, then that's how I remember it, because the Terminators, it's at the end of it, so I'll be back. Kind of makes sense to me anyway. Okay, so obviously here is the main cable. If this main cable was to break, everything would lose connection. Okay, fairly simple with that one. Okay, you can kind of work it out again from the diagram. Okay, in the exam, if you're asked to label it, make sure you put the terminators on. That's a mark. Make sure you label the server if there's a picture of a server. Make sure you label a printer. Probably won't be a picture of a printer exam. Make sure you label these as workstations or nodes. Okay. Moving forward, the ring one. So obviously this one is shaped a little bit like a ring. So obviously that's where its name comes from. So in the ring network, each device, workstation such as a printer, is connected in a ring. So each one is connected to 2 other devices. One massive disadvantage of that is it needs 2 network interface cards, NICs, NICs. It needs 2 of those. One for the computer connecting on. So if I was this one here, I would need a network interface to connect to the cable coming from this one here, and I would need a network interface to connect to the cable coming from this one here. So obviously that again increases expense. Each device receives each packet in turn until the destination device receives it. Think about it. Security risks maybe. So for example, if this guy here is sending bank details to this one here, it's got to pass it through these 2 first. That's pretty risky business. Okay. So the advantage of this one is if you wanted to add another device, it's fairly simple. I have missed the advantages, I'll sort of go through them now. So literally I could just pop another device in and take the cable out of that one, pop it into the new device, take the cable out of that one, pop it into the new device. Perfect. It's expanded, very simple. It's really easy to expand. Okay. Obviously the data in this one flows in one direction. Okay. So there is no chance of collisions with that, but it flows in one direction. So obviously if it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and you've got more devices, it's going to take a long time for the data to make its way around the network. Okay then, moving forward again. HTTP, HTTPS protocol. So, when you go on the internet and you search using a web browser for a website, normally in the URL at the top, okay, uniform resolution result. I can't say it. I will say it a little bit later on. So HTTP. This is when you are trying to access just general websites that do not require any security certificate. So when you go to something like the BBC's just general news website and you go to www.bbc.com, you'll notice in front of it has got HTTP. Okay, HTTP. Okay, and that is the protocol it is using to access that website. Remember that word, protocol. That's going to come up a lot on your exam. The protocol. We're going to come to what a protocol is just a little bit later. In fact, we'll do it now. A protocol is a set of rules in which the network or devices must follow, okay, in order to communicate, okay, or send data on a network. Okay, I'm going to try and say that word again now. So when you go onto a browser and you enter into the URL bar, it is the uniform resource locator. That's it, got it in the end. Uniform resource locator. Okay. However, sometimes you will see a difference of an S on the end. HTTPS. What that stands for is HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, same as this one, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, secure. What that is telling us is it is via a secure connection. It has a security certificate for that website, which means that any data that you pass, such as bank details, such as private information, will be encrypted. Okay, secured, encrypted, so that basically you are not going to have your details stolen. Okay, moving forward now then. So we've got these 3. These will probably appear on your exam in the form of a multiple choice slash a where you have to tick a box to say which is which. You need to know what SMTP, IMAP and POP stands for. Okay, so let's look at SMTP first. SMTP is used in things such as Outlook, okay, which is an email application, okay, and any other email application you can think of, okay, such as Squirrel Mail. It's one I've seen. It's not very popular, but I've seen that. Okay, Hotmail will have its own protocols using SMTP, IMAP and POP for this. So SMTP stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. Okay, it's used for sending / transferring of emails between servers. Okay, so i.e. when I send an email from my phone, okay, it will send it via the Hotmail server that I'm part of, and it'll pass it on to whatever the destination server of the email you are sending it to. Okay, so for example, if I was sending an email from my Hotmail account to my friend who is on Yahoo, okay, SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, is responsible for moving that email following the SMTP protocol, okay, from the Hotmail server and it transfers it to the Yahoo server. Okay? Now, that is sending emails. So you might get asked in an exam, which protocol would be used to send an email to my friend? Well, that would be SMTP. Okay? So clients send emails to server. You are a client, so when you send an email from your computer, okay, you are sending it to the server. Okay? When your friend sends you an email, your server receives it, okay, such as Hotmail, okay, the server then, so for example, if the Yahoo server your friend has got is sending an email to your Hotmail one, okay, it's going to pass the email from the Yahoo one to the Hotmail one, which is sending server sending to another server. Okay, receiving emails then. Okay, when you receive an email, so that means you're getting one from your friend. Okay, this is how you become the recipient of the email, the picture that's been sent in the email, the data that's been sent in the email, etc. The attachment. Okay, the contents of the email, such as just a letter or whatever they wrote to you. Okay. Two ways that can be done, okay? IMAP and POP, and you need to know the difference for your exam. IMAP, okay, basically, it's used for receiving emails from the server. So obviously, when your friend has sent you one, okay, and it's been transferred via the simple mail transfer protocol, now your server needs to give you that email, okay? And that is done via IMAP or POP, okay? It downloads the header first, okay, which is basically the information about what the email contains, okay? It then downloads the full message. Once opened, it leaves a copy on the server. So what that means is when your phone or your computer goes to grab from the server a copy of the email, it takes a copy and it leaves another copy on the server. So what that means is, if my computer now, today, died, broken, wouldn't turn back on, completely shot, okay, hard drive's died, can't get back on it, it's absolutely gone, okay, what that means is if I log in onto another computer, okay, and set up the same email IMAP settings, it will go to the server and grab another copy of those emails and bring them down locally onto my machine, okay, whereas it's taken a copy, so there'll be a copy on my machine now, and there'll be a copy on the server, the Hotmail server, the Yahoo server, depending on who your email account is with. Okay? Whereas POP has a very slight difference. POP is used for receiving emails, but it downloads the entire message and deletes it from the server. So for example, my friend has sent me an email. I use the method of POP to go and collect it from the server. So it goes, it grabs the original message, okay, and brings that message down to my computer and deletes whatever the copy or however many copies of it are on the server. Okay, gone. So it grabs it, brings it down to my computer and deletes a copy. So now, if my PC was to break and I was to get a new one and log into my email account, and I'd been using POP previously, all of the old emails prior to that date beforehand would be gone. So therefore, they are lost. So there is a disadvantage to that. Okay, I have seen this happen recently. I got asked by a friend who owns a lorry company if I would come and sort his new computer out because his computer died. So I went round there and he said, I can't get my old emails. So I logged into his Hotmail account, had a look. On the main server I had a look, there was nothing there. And I said to him, okay, you must have been using POP to download your emails because basically there's no longer a copy of any of your emails on the server. Okay, so what we did is with this new computer, we set it up using IMAP, so from now on there's a copy left on the server. Okay? So, just to reiterate, you definitely need to know what these mean and what they do. So it's simple mail transfer protocol, okay? That is the method of sending emails, okay? Internet Messenger Access Protocol. That is what IMAP stands for, Internet Messenger Access Protocol. You need to know the name, you could be asked it in the exam, okay? POP, Post Office Protocol, okay? Post Office Protocol, okay? The names for those guys, because the post office is responsible for sending your mail. For you receiving mail, sorry. So when the post office, the postman posts it for your letterbox, you receive it. So therefore, that's where the name comes from, okay? Happy days, okay? The other thing I like to remember about the post office is, once you have received it from the postman, he doesn't have a copy of it. Hence why it's called Post Office Protocol. So when he gives you that Amazon package or that letter, and you've had it off him, okay, and it's in your possession, he walks away and he hasn't got a copy of it. So it's very similar to that. Post Office Protocol, when the postman gives you a letter, he hasn't got a copy of it. Okay? Whereas IMAP would be a bit like the postman taking a copy of the letter, giving you a copy and keeping a copy yourself. Then in a few months' time, if you've lost it, say to him, "Can I have my letters back, please?" And he'll give you a copy. Obviously, in the real world scenario, non-computer, in the post office, that would be really infeasible because it would cost a fortune for the Royal Mail to store all of that excess mail, wouldn't it? Moving on anyway. Okay, we looked at hypertext transfer protocol earlier. That's the process of when you are searching the internet, how computers do it. Okay, and then obviously if you're sending secured data such as bank details, you'd use HTTPS, hypertext transfer protocol, secured. Okay, so the next one is FTP. This stands for file transfer protocol. Okay, it is the standard of exchanging data files across networks. Okay, it's commonly used in uploading of websites. So for example, if you've got a website, okay, you might log in using an FTP again, something like ftp.something.com. Okay, what happens there is it would log in, you have a username and password as well, it would connect and it would upload the website you'd made locally. You might have done this in year 7, 8, 9, maybe even year 10 at your school. It would take that website and then it would upload it to a remote location, okay, a web server, okay, or some form of server, okay, and that's done by the file transfer protocol, okay, FTP. Okay, it's used for transferring files normally to a remote location, okay. Right, TCP IP stack. I am pretty confident this year that you are going to be asked to label one of these diagrams that is empty. So at the moment, look, it says application, transport, network, data. I am fairly confident that that table will be empty and you'll be asked to put it in the correct order. I would advise that you come up with some rhyme, okay, to remember it. AT, ND, okay? Can't think of one off the top of my head now, but I'm fairly confident that you could come up with one. Okay, those that are taught by me, tomorrow I'll be impressed if you come up with a nice one. Okay, if it's rude, I don't want to know it. Okay, preferably a nice clean one, please. Okay, so how does the TCP IP stack work? Well, it's quite easy actually. Okay, application. This is the application that you are using. So for example, Outlook is used for sending and receiving my emails. So Outlook here will adhere to various protocols. The protocols we have just learnt about, such as the SMTP, okay, IMAP, POP. Those were the protocols here that the application you are using will adhere to, okay, or follow. Okay, the other one, your browser, such as if you're browsing the internet, that will follow the HTTP protocol, or the HTTPS protocol. Okay. That there is what's happening there. That's your application that you are using, following the rules of the protocols. Okay, okay. The layers here, look, such as this one, the transport layer, is used to create a connection between the sender and the recipient. Okay, so it creates a connection. We're going to go into this in massive detail in a moment. Okay, the network is responsible for sending and routing the data. Okay, so knowing who's sending it and who the intended recipient are. Okay, and the data one, this is the physical hardware. So this is the Ethernet cables we talked about previously, the network interface cards, the switches, the routers, how the data is going to be passed through those. Okay, and that is that section there. So you might be asked about something that operates on the data layer, network interface card. Okay. You might be asked about to give an example of something that operates on the application layer. For that one, you can say something like an email client, okay, or Outlook, Internet Explorer. Those will follow the HTTP, SMTP, POP, depending on what you're doing on them. Okay, protocol. Okay, so let's go through these in more depth. So obviously, this is used when sending data and receiving data. Obviously, when you send data, you tend to have your email open maybe, you've attached maybe an attachment, okay, it makes a connection to where it's going, okay, it adds your sending address, it adds the recipient's address, and then it physically sends it off through the network, okay, maybe onto the internet and through off into the World Wide Web for it to be dealt with by another server and delivered to the person you've sent it to, etc. And in reverse, if you're receiving data, it will come in on the physical layer, so it will come in via your NIC, your network interface card. Okay, here it will look at the person sending it. It will look at the recipient's address to see if it's you. okay, or one of your devices, and then it will pass it up. Here it will reconstruct the packets, okay, and then it will pass it to the application such as the email client to open. Fairly simple. Right then, let's look at the TCP and IP stack then in a little bit more depth. So obviously that we've just looked at is the TCP IP stack. Let's look at each of the layers in depth. So the network applications that you are using operate on the network application layer. Okay, we'll just give you two examples: Outlook, okay, and Internet Explorer. How data is moved in and out of the application is managed through the protocol. The protocol is the rule, okay, / set of instructions that the application must follow in order to be able to send and receive data. End of. Write that down in your exam. 1, maybe 2 easy marks. Okay. Web browsers use HTTP, HTTPS. Email applications use POP or SMTP protocol. Okay. Servers use FTP protocol. So, for example, if I am uploading a website to a server, I would use FTP protocol. One thing I didn't mention in that is the layers can only talk to the adjacent layer. So, for example, okay, application can only talk to transport can only talk to network can only speak to data, okay, and that's just the way it is, I'm afraid, okay. You might be asked that. Right, so I have made this one, so obviously we've just covered the application layer. We are now going to cover the transport layer. The transport layer controls the movement of data packets and how devices communicate with one another. Okay, so when you come to send an image, for example, okay, it doesn't send the whole image at once. It breaks the image down into small packets, okay? Because obviously if it sent it at once, okay, that would cause a massive bottleneck on any network, okay? And there's a good chance it would time out before it managed to send the whole thing. So what happens is it breaks it up into little parts. So for example, if I was sending this picture here, okay, Fortnite, never stop hearing about this at school, but I thought I'd stick it in anyway. So if I was sending this picture to somebody, it wouldn't send it as this whole picture here. It would break it up, look, into small pieces. Obviously computers only understand zeros and ones, so it wouldn't look like that, as you can probably agree. It would probably look something like that. Each of these packets would be given, okay, in the next layer, something really, really important. So the transport layer is responsible for the movement of packets. So what it's done is it's broken it up into small, manageable, okay, packets that can be sent, okay. So the network layer. The network layer takes each of these packets from the transport layer. So here's one, here's another, here's two. So let's say there's, I don't know, 100 packets in total here. It takes its packet 1, packet 2, packet 3. And what the network layer does, it labels it with a source address. This is in the header, by the way. So we have what's called a packet header. In the packet header, what it does, it puts the source IP address. That's who it's coming from. Okay? It then puts a destination IP address. That's who it's going to. It then puts a packet number, which is what you just heard me talk about. So packet 1, packet 2, packet 3. The reason they have numbers is because when I've sent it from my device, okay, or my server, to another device, okay, the device needs to know in what order to put them back together. And this is happening now. You are watching my video, okay, and it isn't streaming the whole video because, for starters, I haven't made the whole video yet. What it is doing is, well, certainly if you're watching it live, it hasn't made it all yet. It's broken it into lots of little packets, and these packets will be arriving at your router, okay, in maybe not the correct order. So what happens is the router receives them, okay, and then what the router does is it passes them to the correct device, okay. So for example, if you've got Xbox One on your network, you've got a mobile phone on your network, you've got the computer you're sitting at now on your network, and an iPad. Okay, if you're watching this video now, it will be passing the packets to that device, okay, and then the packet number will be used for it to be reconstructed back into order. It has something else called a checksum, and what that is, it's a way in which that the network layer is able to check whether or not there is an error, okay, so it has a calculation. The calculation should add up to a particular number, and if it doesn't, there's something wrong, there's a packet that's broken, or there's something missing from it. That's all you need to really know about that. Okay? It needs to know the protocol it's been sent down by. So if it is an internet search, it'll be sent by a HTTP request. If it was an email request, okay, for a sending or receiving, okay, it would be either the ones we talked about earlier. So if we go back, look, and we have a look just quickly. So if it was sending, it would be using SMTP protocol. If it was receiving, it would be IMAP or POP. So let's go back forward again. Okay, And now there's time to live. What that is, it's basically how long the packet will exist before it's discarded. Okay, how long it will exist before it's discarded. That's fairly simple. Okay, right. The data layer. The data layer uses a physical device basically. Here is a network interface card, and you can see here earlier we talked about a Ethernet cable that would plug into there. This would be on the back of your desktop computer or on the side of your laptop if it's got a network port. Some of them are just Wi-Fi now. Okay, so what the network interface card does is it will receive and send data in and out of the network. So obviously it receives data coming into the network, okay, and it sends data out of the network. Okay, so that's relatively simple. Okay, so obviously when you send it, it'll have your source address, it'll have a destination address, and this is the guy that will take it. It will send it out onto the World Wide Web, okay, and basically it will eventually arrive at its destination. Later on in this video, I have got a diagram where I show you the whole process of something like this happening. Okay, so this at the moment is just an overview, and then later on I'll show you a whole diagram where we talk through the whole thing happening. Okay, so that's pretty much how those work. So you're going to need to know the application layer is responsible for basically the application adheres to protocols, HTTP, HTTPS. The transport layer is responsible for breaking the data up into packets, manageable sizes that can be sent across a network. They would look something like that. The network layer is responsible for adding a source and a destination and a packet number so they can be reconstructed at the other end in the correct order. They also have a checksum to see if there's been any errors that occur. They also need to know what protocol that the packet is following. Is it a HTTP request? Is it a SMTP? Is it a POP? Whatever. Okay. And the time that it's going to live before it is discarded by the receiving end of the process. Okay, and then this guy is the data layer. It's also known as the physical layer, but make sure you write data in your exam. They've explicitly requested that. This is the one that sends data out of the network and receives it. Okay, so when it sends it out of the network, it doesn't actually send it out of the network, it sends it out of the device actually. So it comes out of the device into the router, and the router moves it out of the network. Okay, so TCP, this is another one. This is the Transmission Control Protocol. So this is basically an overview of the TCP/IP model itself. You need to know what it does. When sending data, the TCP rules are: it divides messages into chunks called packets. Okay, we know what layer did that. We just saw it do it. Okay, so if we just shoot back again, look, we just saw that the transport layer did that. Okay, and that's inside of the TCP Transmission Control Protocol. Okay, it adds a sequence of numbers to each packet so the message can be reassembled. Okay, we just saw the network layer do that. Okay, adding extra error correction information so errors can be spotted. And that's what the checksum does. The checksum is used to check for errors. Okay, when receiving data via the TCP rules protocol, you know what a protocol is hopefully. Okay, it examines each packet for errors by using the extra information added. So the network layer uses the checksum to check for errors. Okay, it fixes any errors. That might be in the form of requesting for a packet that it's received to be resent because it arrived corrupt. Okay, spotting mistakes in the packets. Okay, that again is using the checksum. If all of the packets are present, it uses the sequencing number to put them back in order so the packet becomes reusable, and then it becomes the big file that was sent from the original destination. It's all pieced back together like a big jigsaw to be the file at the end. The best way I can describe the reason we need a packet number to you is, for example, a true story. I jumped in the car the other day to take my dad to go and buy a new car, and we were going to Nottingham. And what happened was, we arrived there. He brought the car, and we were driving back to our house on the way home. And he went one route, and I went the other route. Okay, they both got us home to the location that we live at. Okay, however, he got there before me because the route he went hadn't got any congestion such as traffic, okay, or any roadworks. In a network, okay, it works very similar. We use the term traffic in a network. So your one packet could go one way, and it's got loads and loads and loads of bandwidth going through that point. It's got loads of free space. Okay, no errors down that route, straight there. Another one could go down a very congested route. Okay, so it goes for a slower route. So it could end up with the packets arriving in the wrong order, and then they're obviously reassembled in the correct order when they arrive. That's why we have a sequence number, okay, or what we call here a packet number. Okay then, UDP. UDP is very, very similar to TCP. It's almost an alternative. Okay, we just mentioned how TCP spots mistakes, okay, and it uses the checksum to do that, okay, and it requests them to be resent. UDP is the opposite. UDP does not do that, okay. It does not check for errors, okay, and it does not ask for them to be resent, okay. The advantage of this is that since UDP does not ask for data to be sent back and forward, okay, it's much faster, okay, and it uses a process called the handshake process. The handshake process is where basically two devices, such as a computer on one network and a computer on another network, okay, want to communicate. The two networks, okay, the routers, okay, will handshake, okay, not literally, but they will have an agreement on what protocol they're going to follow and how the data is going to be transferred. Okay. The downside to the UDP is if an error does occur, it doesn't get fixed. So quite often, if you were watching a YouTube stream that was in UDP and one of the packets became corrupt while you're watching this live now, that packet would never get fixed, so there would just be a missing part of the video, or multiple missing parts if there was a greater issue and more packets have been dropped. Okay. Network interface cards. You saw me earlier show you one with a Ethernet port on the back. This one has an antenna on the back. So there are two types. There is a wireless Ethernet card and there is a wired Ethernet card. So obviously they are called NICs, Network Interface Card, and you could be asked what that means. It's probably worth remembering for your exam. Okay, it's built into every network device. Okay, for example, they don't always have an antenna like this. If you take your phone has Wi-Fi. Okay, you can connect to a Wi-Fi network. It'll have a small antenna inside of it. It won't have one like this. Okay, and that's pretty much all you need to know about that. Okay, obviously you need to know the advantages and disadvantages of a wireless and wired network, which we covered earlier. Okay, right, DNS. Earlier on I showed you me looking at something called HTTP and HTTPS. When you search for a website on the internet, okay, you type in a URL, www.bbc.co.uk. So that is a URL. I have typed in a URL and it will take me to that website. However, okay, a URL, okay, isn't the main way of getting to a website, believe it or not. The URL is basically for human, make it easier for humans basically. It makes it easier for us to get to where we need to go, okay? What happens is this, okay? Every server on the internet, okay, will have a unique, okay, IP address, 173.16.3.20. I've made that up, so don't even try and ping it if you know what that is. Okay, that there is a IP address, okay, and what happens is I could technically go on the internet now, and if this was a real IP address, I could type it into my URL, and it would take me to the website. Okay. However, it would be very strange if we said to our friends, "Oh God, you want to see this new website? Go to 173.16.3.20." Okay, and your friend would type that in. It's really hard to remember. So what we've got is we've got another protocol which is called the DNS protocol, Domain Name System, and what that does is it takes addresses like this and it applies this on top. So it's a bit like I might live at, again making this up, 135 Red Road. Okay, rather than saying I live at 135 and then giving you the longitude and latitude of my address, okay, 135 at a longitude address of 10 dot whatever and then latitude address of 15 dot whatever, okay, rather than giving you that, okay, I could give my house a name. I could say I live at Rowlands household, okay, and then if you knew how to find Rowlands household by going and looking at something like a domain name system and it tells you, oh, Rowlands household is at this location, and it takes you to there, it saves time. So when you go to a website, what actually happens is you type in www.whatever.com, such as www.bbc.co.uk, and what that will do is it will look up on the domain name system, okay, where this address needs to go, and it'll go, okay, that address is pointing at 173.16.3.20. So it'll look up that server and it will navigate you to the server that contains, okay, the information that you are after. Okay, so that sits on top of that. You can technically use both to navigate to a website. Okay, moving forward. So domain name systems. Here is basically an example of them. They are all over the world. Okay, they are stored normally in massive server rooms. Okay, Google has its own one. Okay, various other large companies have their own one. Okay, and literally what will happen is when you search for a website, www.whatever.com, it will go to one of these. It'll say, where is this address? It's at 172.63.44.22, and then it will navigate you to that address. Plain and simple. Okay? Okay, so we've covered some of this earlier. So what is a network? I'm going to stop here for all of that 5 seconds, and while I'm talking, you guys can have a go at that. It's a 2-mark question. Let's look at the points that you would score the marks for this. Pretty confident this should come up on your exam. So here we go. 2 or more computers / devices connected together to communicate and share resources. Okay? That there. Where are the marks? Where are the 2 marks? 2 or more computers. There's a mark. Connected together. Okay? That is the 1 mark. 2 or more computers connected together. 1 mark. Okay? To communicate and share resources. 2 marks. If I was going to extend that answer just to guarantee I got the marks, okay, I would put something like 2 or more computers connected together to communicate and share resources such as a printer. Just to give an example. It doesn't ask for one, but why not? Stick it on there just to guarantee that you're going to get the mark. Okay? So, let's move forward now. That one's fairly simple. Most schools have a computer network. Some schools allow teachers to access the computer network from home. Okay? Give one reason why some schools allow this and why one reason why some schools do not allow this. Again, in my previous video, we highlighted the key points. I haven't done that this time because I just physically haven't had the time. Okay? So again, I'm hoping you can give me a reason for that now. Okay? Shouting at the screen ideally, or if you want, pause it, okay, if you're watching this back at a later day, and answer it as we go. Okay? So what you should have got for that is teachers can work from home, access files on the school network. Okay? So obviously, it means they can work from home. Okay? They're able to access the files on the school network. This piece here, teachers can work from home, is no mark at all, because it's given to you here. Okay? Accessing files on the school network while they're at home, that's an advantage, that's a reason for it. So they don't need to be at home to be able to work, they can work from home, they're able to access the files and the data that they require at work. There's a reason. Okay? Okay? Here's a little bolt onto that. They have access to students' work remotely, allowing them to mark and plan from home. That would be a far better one than the top one. So that one there, look, these will extend each other. So the teacher is able to work from home, repeating the question. Probably don't need that bit, although this was in the exam mark scheme. They can access files from the school network, allowing them to remotely mark, okay, or plan from home. Remotely means connecting to a server, okay, that is not in the current location where you are. Okay. Reasons against. Data protection issues. School may not want potential sensitive information to be accessed outside of school. Because obviously, if you think about your network at home might have a virus on it. Okay, it might have been breached by someone that's a hacker. Okay, it might have some form of malware on there. Okay, it might have somebody with a keylogger on there, and it could be collecting really sensitive information from that teacher's computer, potentially children's addresses, children's full names, maybe parents' contact details, stuff that's quite worrying if it was accessed outside of school. Okay, so obviously the big issue there is security risk, because what we don't want to happen is any data to potentially be leaked or lost, because then they would be in breach of the Data Protection Act, which we'll come to later. Okay, then moving forward again. PAN and LAN. So we know that PAN stands for Personal Area Network. We know that LAN stands for Local Area Network, and there are two different types of networks. Describe one difference between PAN and LAN. Okay, I've put this on the board again because it's fairly simple. PANs have one user. LANs normally have more than one user, because a PAN, remember, is a personal area network. It's for one person. A LAN tends to be for a greater amount of people, normally a household, such as at the moment I'm on this computer streaming to you guys, and I know that my son is downstairs watching Netflix. Okay, Paw Patrol in fact. So there you go, there's two of us on the network. Okay, we are both sending data to and from, receiving and sending data to and from the router, so that we are able to access stuff outside of our network and bring it in, such as the Paw Patrol that he's watching on Netflix, and I am sending data out of the network, such as this video, to you guys. Okay, moving forward then, here's another one. PANs are centered around one person. LANs cover a limited geographical area. LANs cover a larger area than PANs though, because if you remember we said that PANs tend to cover between 1 to 2 meters, such as an iWatch connected to an iPhone, some wireless earphones connected to an iPhone, or a phone tethered to an iPad or something like that. Okay, give one example of where a PAN could be used. Okay, wireless Bluetooth headphones, we just said that. Okay, any wearable device such as a smartwatch, I would definitely in the exam go with either Bluetooth/wireless earphones or a smartwatch. Obviously, if it gives you one of them, such as it says, David has a set of wireless earphones as a personal area network. What else could he have? Obviously, do not write wireless earphones because I've already given it to you. Add smartwatches as an additional answer. Okay, schools should use a wireless network instead of a wired network. Discuss the this statement. Now, one thing I haven't pointed out in this exam is I have got in front of me every single past paper question, and I've noticed that most of the questions on the previous exams have been between 6 and 9 markers, and they're quite for half of the paper. So all of this stuff I am covering, you need to know in immense detail, and I am just doing an overview so you can go away and rehearse it after this lesson. Okay, discuss the statement. Now I can't fit that on that screen because it's not big enough, so what I have done is I've broken it down and I have highlighted the keywords for you. So this is why the school should use a wired network. Okay, wired has a higher bandwidth than wireless, so things such as multimedia elements, such as watching videos and that, will be transferred quicker and we have a larger bandwidth. Okay, remember bandwidth isn't the be all and end all because throughput is what we're actually getting, but by having a larger bandwidth, as long as we've got the switches and the routers and the cabling to match that speed, we are going to get a high bandwidth. Okay, but that could come with some cost. Okay, the system on a wired network tends to be more reliable because it's not subject to interference or people trying to hack into it or connect to it when they don't know the password. Okay, security is higher. Obviously, you need to be in the same building to physically plug into the router or into the switch. Okay, to basically connect to the network. Okay, the network performance may be poor if there are a large number of students. The network may be poor if there are a large number of students own devices connected to the network at one time. Okay? That is because it might not necessarily have the same protocols set up as the network itself. I would personally go with these three. Okay? Moving forward now. So we've got the wireless network. A wireless network, the advantage is devices can connect to it without cables, so there's going to be no trailing cables in our way. Okay, the device can be moved around, it can be carried around, which is absolutely great. Okay, it's the maintenance. It's a safe working environment. Okay, because no trailing cables. Advantage is the devices are portable, so you can move around while you're doing various things, such as if you've got a phone connected to the network, it can move around. Okay, if I've got a laptop, it can move around. It allows the devices to be used outside. So, for example, if you've got a PE teacher that wants to take his register outside, he can use a wireless network for that, connect to it. How about that? Okay, wireless devices tend to be cheaper and easier to expand. So literally, just buy another device, type in the SSID and the web/WPA SKA code, okay, which is basically the username and password, and that's it, you're on, you're connected. Okay, however, one thing that is missing off here is the management of wireless devices is a lot harder than wired. So wired, I can install software that will manage what the devices can do on the shared network, and I've got more control over the monitoring of the network, which it says here. Whereas this one, I've got a little bit less control. It's a little more limited because people are connecting devices and they're connecting, disconnecting all of the time. Okay, less cables, less drilling. Okay, save money because I don't need to buy expensive cables. And the other advantage is there's quite a lot of devices out there, such as iPads and phones, that don't have a Ethernet port on the side. So what that means is I can literally connect to them wirelessly without having to plug a cable in. So that, again, that's useful for devices that haven't got a wired NIC card, network interface card. Okay. Right then, let's move forward then. I just want to reiterate that one there. That is probably the weakest answer out of all of them, to be honest with you. Now, I've had this from the official marking paper, and out of all of them, I would definitely say that all those are strong. That one is a little bit weaker. in the sense that the network performance may be poor. Okay, it's not necessarily, it's not a very strong answer. Try and avoid that one if I was you. Okay, when two computers on a network communicate with each other, they use the same protocol. Define what the term protocol is. We talked about this earlier. A protocol is a set of rules, okay, that must be followed in order for devices to communicate. Okay, another great way is a set of rules or instructions by which the computers communicate. Okay, it guarantees their work. That's why if you go and buy a new network interface card and install it in your computer, that's why you can still use your network, because it follows the set of protocols we've talked about today. That's why if you go and buy one of these new smart plugs, I've got a couple myself, where they're wireless ones. You connect them to a lamp and then you connect them to your wireless network, and then they communicate the same way. They send a protocol packet such as UDP or TCP packet that's basically communicating with my network. It's following those rules and protocols. That's why it works. Okay, right. Hopefully, I'm pretty confident that these are going to come up on your exam. In fact, I'm very confident. They seem to be on every year. Don't quote me on it, but I'd be shocked if they weren't there. Used to receive emails stored on a server. Okay? So you should be looking down this now going, HTTP, that is when we're making a request to the internet. HTTP, that is when we're making a request to the internet via a secure method. FTP, it's for transferring files, it's a file transfer protocol. SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. IMAP, which is Internet Messenger Access Protocol. Okay, so you're looking at that and hopefully you're thinking, yeah, I know that, and it's IMAP. IMAP is used for sending and receiving emails, and remember, it leaves a copy on the server. That's why it is better than POP. Used to make a payment secure. Okay, we've just talked about those, so again, you should pretty much know them. They're fairly simple. Okay, moving forward. This one, used to send an email from a client's machine to a email. So that's from my machine as the client to an email server, such as the Hotmail server. Okay, so let's look at that now. It's SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. Don't mix those up, get them right. Okay, so happy days. Moving on quite quickly now. Obviously, if you can share this on social media, it would be really, really helpful. I'd like as many people as we can to see this. Draw a diagram showing 4 computer networks using a buzz topology. 4 computer networks, sorry, using a buzz topology. The buzz is the one with the big backbone down the middle, isn't it? Okay, it's almost shaped like like the buzz windows. That's the way I like to remember it. What are the circles on the end? You tell me. Okay, hopefully you're saying they are terminators. So what we do is we draw 4 boxes to show computers or nodes or workstations. All 3 are the same thing. Okay. Main cable shown in the buzz down the middle. Okay, each computer has a connection to the main cable, the buzz cable, and we have terminators at each end. So 1 mark for that. Okay, 1 mark for the computers. Okay, 1 mark for the cables, and then obviously 1 mark for the terminators if it's a 4 marker. Okay, if it was a 3 marker, I would say that you probably don't get a mark for putting all the computers on, but certainly I would be putting them all on anyway. Okay, make sure you put at least 4 computers. If it asks for 4 computers, don't put 5. Okay, don't put 6, don't put 2, don't put 3, put 4 like it asks. Fairly simple. Okay then, here's another version of what you can end up with. The diagram below shows a client-server network. The clients are connected to a switch. Now I haven't really mentioned a switch, so I'm going to do it now. So, we mentioned a router earlier. A router is responsible for routing data around the network and out of the network. I'm going to show you an absolutely excellent diagram at that at the end, so make sure you stick with me. A router actually has a small switch built into it. When you turn your router over, you'll see these little ports. These are Ethernet ports. Okay? And a switch is basically, it's a bit like a light switch. Okay? It switches on and off the connections between various computers. And if you've ever looked at one, they blink really, really quick. So they're switching off and connections between different computers. The best way to describe it, it's a bit like the old-fashioned, when people used to make phone calls and there used to be someone sat at the other, at the inter-exchange. When you say, oh, can I speak to Mrs. Jones, please? And she'd unplug a cable and then plug it into Mrs. Jones' line. Okay, the switch does that automatically. Okay, so it's switching connections really, really, really fast. Okay, and it's smart. There's quite a lot of smart switches that actually switch data depending on who it's going to. They are aware. They are aware of where the data is going to. That's the difference between a switch and a hub. A switch is smart and it understands where the data is going to. A hub, if this was a hub, it's not a hub. But if it was a hub, it just send the data to everybody. So a hub is as a security risk. It's not as good. Okay. So, what network topology is shown in the diagram above? So you're looking at it, and it's a bit of a trick question because it's actually not showing everything. So if we look at it, look, it is in fact a star. Okay, the reason it is a start is because it has a central device and each of them have a cable connected to it. Okay, and we're showing the data in and out of each. Okay, state 2 advantages of this particular one. So exactly what we've just said. Okay, new computers can be added easily. Literally, I can just plug a computer into there, job done. Plug a computer into there, job done. Dead easy. Okay, if one device fails, the whole network will continue to work. So if this device here, the cable gets cut or the power supply blows up in it, drops out the network, but the rest stays on. Excellent. Okay, next, it has improved performance because it's got a direct connection between it and the hub or the switch, which is great. Okay, data is only sent to the intended device. Okay, that's because there's a switch involved in this network. Okay, because there's a switch only sends it to the intended device. Hubs don't do that. Hubs send it to any device on the network. Moving forward, cybersecurity. Okay, something I haven't taught my group because it's shared with another teacher, and he certainly covered this. So we're just going to recap this really quick. Okay, cybersecurity. So password. Okay, password should be between 10 and 15 characters. Okay, when you enter that, if you get the message that says password is too short, it's not long enough, that's called a length check. It's checking how long the password is. Okay, the other one that we commonly see is double entry. So you know when you come to change your password and you have to enter it twice, that's called double entry because you enter the password twice, so it can verify that you've definitely entered the password that you want. So it says, it says enter password and then confirm password. That's called double entry. Okay, lowercase, uppercase checks. Okay, check to see if they've got an uppercase in them. See if they've got lowercase. Check to see if they have got a symbol in them. Okay, that's fairly simple. Okay, moving forward to this one then. List 3 different measures that can be used to maintain and secure a computer system. For each measure, outline what the measure is, explain what they are. So I've put this one into a great big massive breakdown of them so we can have a look at them together. Okay, because it's a 9 marker, there's going to be a few of these. So virus check. Okay, so this one is talking about security in a computer. Okay, it's not to do with passwords in massive detail. It's kind of a generic question about cybersecurity as a whole. Okay, outline what is the measures that could be taken. Okay, explain what type of threats to cybersecurity there is. Okay, and how we stop them basically. Okay, virus checker. So obviously you can install antivirus on your machine, such as Avast, Norton, McAfee, any of those. Okay, what they do is they scan files for what looks like malicious code that is intended to cause damage. Okay, to your computer. Okay, or not. Or make the computer work in a way it wasn't intended to work. Okay, so they cause damage. Okay, to the computer. The problem with virus checkers is viruses are made every day. So virus checkers need to be kept up to date to make sure that they are aware and able of catching the latest viruses. Okay, they have various different things built into them, such as a quarantine. So if they've got a quarantine, they basically grab the malicious code and drop it in what's like a vault, so it can't run. Basically, it prevents it from running on your system and then basically damaging your computer or the software on it. Okay, or hardware in fact. It deletes malware, so it stops malware running on your system. You need to know what malware is. Okay, if you don't know what malware is, you need to look that up. Okay, I may cover that a little bit later on. I'm running out of time though. Okay, suspicious files. It reads through suspicious files, check what they are, and again, it'll stick them in quarantine if it doesn't like them. Okay, if it finds that a file is acceptable, it'll let it carry on. Okay, so it'll let it through. Right, firewalls. Okay, the firewall. The firewall scans incoming and outgoing data from a network. Okay, so it analyses network traffic. It checks what's coming in and what's going out. It checks if the network expects that data. Okay, it checks if it passes all the protocol rules. It checks if it's got the correct username and password and things like that before it lets it access. So for example, if you've got a CCTV installed in your house, okay, you might have a UDP or TCP, okay, request coming into your house. You might get your iPhone out at work or at school, okay, and try and connect to your cameras at home. Okay, it'll go across the internet. Okay, it will connect to your router. Your router will pass the packets to the CCTV system. The CCTV system will go, right, yeah, it's definitely a UDP request, but they've got the username and password incorrect, so I'm not going to let them in. So, okay, it stops it. Okay, before it gets to that, okay, before it actually even gets to the router, to the CCTV device, the firewall actually steps in first. So the firewall is at router level basically, and what it does is quite a lot of routers have built-in firewalls, and it will check to see if that was a requested or a recognised packet of data, okay, or it's a recognised source. If it wasn't, you won't let it in. Okay, so it blocks suspicious traffic. Okay, for example, if someone is DDoSing you or constantly sending you bogus data, the firewall would block it from entering the network. Okay, login and authentication and biometric, those are kind of obvious. They're just literally logins. So literally, when you type in your username and password, it authenticates, checks that the username and password is correct, okay, and lets you in. Fairly simple. Okay, biometric scanners. Okay, so these are basically the ones that are like a thumbprint scanner. We've even got retinal scanners now, which is eye scanners. That's another method of logging in. Voice recognition. That's another one we're seeing now on the on some devices. Okay, and these are all basically to try and stop unauthorized access, reduce the chance of hackers getting in. Okay, and that's what they're for, basically, authentication. Okay, right, MAC address filtering. We're going to come to that a little bit later. I'm going to leave that one out for now. Encryption. Encryption, when we send private data across the internet, especially using HTTPS, okay, our data is encrypted so that if someone was to intercept that packet of data and they grab that packet of data from the network, maybe they're sniffing it, not literally sniffing it, but maybe they're using some form of packet sniffing, so maybe they've managed to connect to your Wi-Fi network and they are sniffing all packets that are leaving your router. So maybe you've typed in your Facebook username and password, okay, but it's encrypted. What that means is it doesn't look like the original. So let's say your password was bob1234 and your username was bob@bob.com. Let's say that you type those into Facebook. They would not be passed across your network in that form. They would be encrypted. They would go through a process of changing what they actually read or what they look like to disguise what it is, and that's basically to stop people breaking into it. Now obviously that requires that your device and the receiving device know the encryption key. And what that means is that they are able to encrypt it, and then at the other end it's able to be decrypted. So that stops basically anyone grabbing hold of it and getting. You need the encryption key to break it down. Obviously, I'm not going to go into that in massive detail. You need to know what encryption is. You might want to look that up on after this. That one's fairly simple. I'm going to skip that. Access rights. So obviously on a network you can have access rights. For example, at school your teachers will have a different set of access rights to you. That means that your teachers, for example, are able to access the staff shared area and you're not. Okay, that comes down to access rights and permissions. By doing that you can restrict what people are able to open or look at on a network. Fairly simple. Okay, it stops them being able to delete files as well, and it stops basically hackers or threat of data being lost through someone just being malicious and horrible basically. Capture. You should know what these are. It's literally when you sign up for something, you get the box asking you to click on all of the ones that are pretty much, please click on all of the ones that are flags, or please click on all the ones that are cars. Okay, it's basically to check that you are not a bot, you are not a computer program that has been designed to log in and act as a human being, okay, or be able to connect to a network and collect data. It's basically to stop automatic bots taking over basically. Okay, a piece of software. So for example on Facebook, if it was constantly being spammed by someone commenting over and over and over again, i.e. a bot is doing that, constantly writing stuff in the network, eventually rather than letting them post, it'll pop up and say fill in this captcha. 9 times out of the 10 a bot would not be able to fill that in, so it wouldn't work, but a human would, and then they would be able to carry on posting. Okay, automatic software updates. So an operating system or any piece of software you've got installed has updates. These are for security purposes sometimes. So for example, my banking app recently has had a software update because some rules and regulations have changed to do with the data protection, and they've updated some of their policies. So they have patched the Lloyds banking app to basically ensure that the latest patch is installed, the latest firmware is installed, and people aren't able to log into my account via hacking methods. Okay. IP addressing. Right, earlier on you heard me talk about that when you go onto the internet and you search www.bbc.co.uk, you are going to a website. It is using a DNS, okay, the name server to identify the IP address, the location of that website. Okay, every device has an IP address. There is 2 types of IP addresses you need to know about. There are internal network IP addresses, okay, and then there are external IP addresses, okay, and I'm going to go over a diagram in a moment in massive detail that covers these. Okay, when a packet leaves your network, okay, it is stamped with the address, the source address, and then when it receives, and then it's also stamped with the destination address. It's sent from this one to another address. Okay, fairly simple. Okay, IPv4 standard addressing. There's an example of an IP address. Okay, MAC address. What a MAC address is? A MAC address is a hard-coded address. These are hard-coded into the network interface card. Okay, and what they do is they enable the device to be identified on no matter what network it is on. So this is device dependent. So when you buy a new laptop, the network interface card will already have one of these hard-coded into it. Okay, if you buy a phone, it will have one of these hard-coded into its network interface card. Okay, and they are all unique. No phone has the same MAC address as another phone. Okay, the reason for this is it is partially used so we can track exactly which device sent what data. So if you look at UK laws, for example, and you take into consideration someone that's looking at something they shouldn't be, okay, and they've done it in an internet cafe. So let's say they've done it in a public internet cafe, okay, and when they connected to the network, they were allocated the IP address of 192.168.1.2. That's an internal address, okay. They go in there for the first time. They've connected to the network. They've looked at something on the internet they shouldn't look at. 3 weeks later, the network issues that same address to somebody innocent that's just going on Facebook, 192.168.1.2. How would the network distinguish between the person that was looking at something they shouldn't be, okay, and the person that was looking at something they were allowed to look at? Well, that's the MAC address, okay? So the MAC address is device dependent. So every computer has an independent MAC address, whereas IP addressing can change, okay? So IP addressing can be allocated to different machines, okay, over the life period of the network, okay, whereas the MAC address is the same for every device, okay? And we're going to come to that in a little bit more detail next, okay? So here's my diagram I was talking about earlier. Now I am going to do my best to explain this to you now. You will notice that I'm going to call this my network, the blue side, and I'm going to call this my friend's network, the right side, okay? Here's the World Wide Web, and here I have got some servers. I've got Google server, I've got Xbox Live server, I've got Mac Makeup server, something I buy from all the time, and I've got Amazon server. So, where do I start then? So, let's say I'm setting up my network. So, I plug my router in for the first time, okay? By default, when it was sent to me by my internet service provider, my ISP, when I turned it on, it got a default IP address of 192.168.0.1. And what that is, that's my internal IP address. It's only visible internal to all of the devices connected internally. So my Xbox would see that, my PC1 would see that, my Fire Stick would see that, my PC2 would see that, and my iPad would see that. However, the Xbox would see that as the gateway address, the gateway to the gateway. Okay, the PC1 would see that as the gateway, the Fire Stick would see it as the gateway, PC2 would see it as the gateway, and the iPad would see it as the gateway address. Okay, so that is my gateway address. Okay, in fact, I can actually show you one of those now. So if I do an IP config on my network, okay, which I've just done now, I'm going to scroll down. You will see here that here is my network. So default gateway, which is here, look, 192.168.0.1. Okay, you'll see that my network default gateway that's my internal address, so it doesn't matter if you know that because it's not going to cause me any problems. Okay, and like this computer is connected on 192.168.0.6. So this computer, okay, is here at 192.168.0.6, and it's pointing at my gateway of 192.168.1, which is my router basically. Okay, close that down. Right then, so what that means is that all of these devices, when the Xbox wants to connect to the internet, it will contact the default gateway. When the PC wants to connect to the internet, it will contact the default gateway. However, if my PC2 wanted to send a file to my PC1, it would contact the default gateway via the internal IP address, and it would send the data via the internal IP address to PC1. So what would happen here is, it would follow the TCP IP protocol basically, and what would happen is, let's say I have got an application open. Okay, the application is using a protocol such as TCP IP. UDP, SMTP, HTTP. And what I have basically done there is I want to send a picture to this guy here. He's internal, so it doesn't need to go out onto the internet and back in via an email server. I could do that, but that'd be pointless. So I just want to send it inside my network. So what would happen is, it would go down my TCP/IP stack. The application would follow the correct protocol. Okay. Then the transport layer would start breaking the picture or whatever I'm sending up into small packets. Then the network layer, okay, would then put the sending address on it, which is 192.168.0.5, and the source address of 192.168.0.3. Okay. And then what would happen is the physical data layer, my network interface card, which would be here, my network interface would send that. Okay, it would come out my network interface card. It would go into the Ethernet cable of my router. The router routing table, okay, routers route data around a network, okay, whether it's internally or externally. Okay, my router would then interpret it and go, right, is 192.168.0.3 inside my network? Yes. So then it would pass the data up to PC1, okay, and then that device then would receive it, and then the TCP/IP stack would start putting it back together, so that device would get that data. Obviously, the packet would be sent really quick, one after the other, bang, 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 and then passing them up. Okay, that's internal. Okay, I'm going to point this out. Notice my Xbox is 192.168.0.1. No, .2, sorry. 192.168.0.2. So is my friend's. My PC1 is at .3. So is his. My Fire Stick is at .4. But his smart TV is at .4. My PC2 is at .5. And his laptop is at .5. My iPad is at 06, and so is his. Now, we said earlier that IP addresses should be unique. Okay, but those aren't. The reason for that is that they are internal. What I mean by internal is, internally, they communicate with each other on those addresses. That means on the inside that network there, look, I've just drew around, okay, those will communicate via the internal IP address. Okay, this side, the internal IP address here, those will communicate via the internal IP address. Okay, if this device here, Xbox, wanted to connect to Xbox Live and play a game, okay, then it wants to go externally. So you'll notice that I have an external IP address here and an external IP address here. You'll notice that they are in fact different. 232.44.55.33, 214.44.55.33. The key difference between those is this. Okay, that's like my house address, and that's like my friend's house address. Our houses physically can't be in the same location unless it's the same house. Okay, so this could be 12 Red Road, this could be 13 Green Road. Okay, fairly simple. So when my Xbox wants to communicate onto the internet, it basically does the same again using TCP/IP. Okay, it will basically, the application such as the Xbox itself will make a request to communicate outside the network. It will make the data layer will start to break up the packets. The network layer will package it up. It'll say, right, I want to send the packet from 192.168.0.2. Okay, I want to send it out onto the internet to the Xbox Live server. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're signing into Xbox Live. So what happens is it sends that first packet to the router, and the router looks at it and says, right, 178.55.66.33. Okay, if it knows the IP address, okay, is not on my internal. So it'll go onto the web, it'll find a server on the World Wide Web somewhere. It's a DNS. If it didn't know the IP address, at this point we do, because I'm just giving it as an example, and then it would connect to there. So this time, if it didn't know the IP address, this one would make a request on 192.168.0.2 to the default gateway, okay, to connect to www.xboxlive.com. So what would happen is it would go onto the net, okay, go to a DNS server, it would look up where xboxlive.com is. It would say it's at 172.55.66.36. It would come back to the router, okay, and then the router would package the packet up and it would make a connection to Xbox Live, and then it would make a connection. So what I'm getting at here is basically when the Xbox wants to communicate outside the network, it does so through the router, but the router uses its external IP address to communicate outside the network. Okay? This router would use its external IP address to communicate to the network. So if Xbox Live wanted to get out onto the network, it uses sends the data to the router, and the router does it on its behalf. Okay, PC1 sends it to the router uses its external IP address on its behalf. Okay, that's why in houses we commonly have friends that have the same internal IP addresses as us. Because as long as our router's external IP address is different, okay, we are able to connect externally. There we go, fairly simple. So where does the MAC address come into this? This is not going to spend too much longer on here now. So let's pretend that this now is not my house, it is an internet cafe. Okay, and you can bring your own devices. A bit odd to bring in an Xbox, but someone has. Okay, let's forget about this side of the network altogether. So in walks a chap, and he plugs his PC in. Okay, he gets allocated 192.168.3. Okay, connects, uses the internet, excellent, perfect, all legit, doing as he should. Okay, he leaves the network, so he unplugs his device, either wireless or wireless, whichever, depends on what he's done. Okay, he's no longer part of the network. The router will reserve that IP address for him for 7 days, or whatever it's been set up in the router. Okay, most routers are about 7 days, so it will reserve that IP address for him for 7 days. Okay, he doesn't come back. Okay, a new chap comes in and plugs in. Now I can't change this because I haven't done it on the presentation, I'm just talking about it, but let's say this guy's PC was called PC3, so we can ignore the one, PC3. He gets allocated on the 8th day the same address, 192.168.0.3. Okay, he looks at something he shouldn't look at. Maybe he's looking at something illegal, maybe he's looking at how to do something that's illegal. Okay, and then he disconnects from the network, off he goes, and he goes and does that illegal thing. Okay, and the police can't catch him. But the police have identified that on the network with the external IP address 232.44.55.33, someone was searching for something they shouldn't have done. But when they come in and they look at the devices that have connected, they'll notice that 2 devices were given over the lifetime of the 8 days 192.168.0.3. Okay? The way they tell the difference between the devices is the MAC address. The MAC address is a unique address for the device. Okay, and they would look at the MAC address and identify that it wasn't PC1 that was looking at it, it was PC6. Look at the MAC address, and then they might find that the guy with that MAC address connects at his home address a week later. Okay, and then they're able to source him and find him. That's how the police do a lot of their investigations and findings. It's a little bit more complex than that, but that's the basic outline. Moving forward then, you are going to need to know these. Data Protection Act. I would advise the keywords I've highlighted here in bold that you create a rhyme for. Okay, create a rhyme that is going to let you remember those. So Data Protection Act, it's kind of obvious. If you're storing data about somebody, i.e. Facebook stores data about me, my bank stores data about me, they have to keep it secure. For starters, the bank's storing my money, that's data that belongs to me. Okay, they need to keep that secure to stop me losing it. Okay, let the subject see what data they've got. So for example, use the bank as an example. I can log in and say, what information have you got? And I'll say, oh, we know that you've got this much in your account, yeah, we've got this, your address, we've got your personal details, we've got your national insurance number. Okay, they're telling me what your data they've got, they have to do that. The data must be up to date. So for example, if the police wrongly convicted me of something, or anybody of something, okay, and then at a later date the police said, oh sorry, it wasn't you, apologies, it should be updated. So basically my record should be updated to say actually he didn't do that, okay, it was a mistake on our behalf, he's got a clean record. There's a key example. Okay, should be relevant. So for example, if I've got a company that sells hard drives, I shouldn't be storing people's shoe sizes because it's got nothing to do with hard drives. Okay, it's irrelevant data, shouldn't be doing it. Okay, used for the intended purposes. So if I tell someone I am collecting data because I'm trying to work out the average age for people buying their first house, okay, I then can't do that to work out the average age of people get into debt, because then that's lying about how I'm going to use the data. Okay, obtained lawfully. So I can't call up and tell somebody that I am Lloyds Bank, say, hi there, I'm Lloyds Bank, can you tell me your username and password because we've got a breach on your account. That's lying. I'm pretending to be somebody I'm not. I'm obtaining it for wrong purposes. Accurate. So again, that relates to up to date. The information must be accurate. Okay, that means that it's got to be correct. So you can't store and say that I have, for example, got a conviction when I haven't. That's not accurate. Okay, it has to come off. The police have to make sure what they write down is accurate. Okay, and any other company that's storing information. So for example, if I got a gambling account and I was banned from gambling for some reason, okay, the information that's held on me needs to be accurate to say that I'm not allowed to have a gambling account. Okay, can't hold it for longer than necessary. The information that I've got should not be held for longer than the period that I say that I'm going to hold it for. So if I say, oh, I'm going to collect this information, I'm going to create a journal, then I'm going to dispose of it within 6 months, I have to do that. Okay, there are laws out there for that, part of the Data Protection Act, obviously. Okay, health and safety, these are kind of obvious. From an employer's point of view, you need to make sure that the working area is safe. Okay, you provide adjustable chairs, things like that if you're working in ICT. The footrest is provided if required. If you work in ICT, you can have a paid eye test. Anti-glare screens if you spend more than 2 hours on a computer. Suitable lighting for the room, and allow regular breaks, 15 minutes every 2 hours for computing. Okay, Computer Misuse Act. Computer Misuse Act, you could get asked what this is. This is basically gaining unauthorised access to a computer, okay, i.e. guessing someone's password is unauthorised access. They didn't give you permission to use it, but you've guessed the password. That is still unauthorised access, still misuse the computer. Manipulating someone's software or altering the way it works is Computer Misuse Act. Creating a virus that is intended to cause harm or damage to a computer, that's misuse because it's not for a good purpose. Okay, you don't need to know the year it was revised, but you do need to know about it. Okay, it's used basically to stop people, hackers and people that basically create viruses. Moving forward still. So, copyright law. Copyright is basically used to protect people's material. Okay, so if you've created a bespoke piece of software, you can copyright it so people can't steal it. Okay, licensing comes under that as well. So your licensing law, so you can get a license to use someone's software. You might get asked in your exam why it's against the law to go and buy the latest Ed Sheeran CD, make 10 copies of it and then sell them. Well, you don't have the license to sell copies of it. When you buy a CD, you have the rights to listen to that, okay, and use it, okay, for personal use. You do not have the rights to even play it in public, in fact, because that would come under a entertainment license, believe it or not. You don't need to know it for your exam. Okay, copyright. The reason it's in place is to stop loss of sales, i.e. people selling stuff like the Ed Sheeran single that's not theirs. Okay, unemployment. Okay, because obviously the film industry, the music industry, they play a big part in our country and our economy. So obviously it's to stop that. Companies have to pay legal expenses to prosecute, which is a bit very unfair. So if someone steals my stuff, I've got to pay money to prosecute them. It seems a little unfair. Obviously, you can claim the costs back if you win in court. Okay, increase price in consumers. For example, for every person that buys a dodgy copy of Ed Sheeran's album or an illegal copy, that's what forces the prices of our albums up. Because what happens is the companies that produce them or make them have to put their price up of the CDs that are sold in order to regain that money they lose, so that they don't lose themselves. Okay, fewer products brought due to small budget. Very simple. Okay. What if a business uses something they have not commissioned for? Okay, they could lose loss of confidence by the person that is using them. Okay, they could be prosecuted. Brand name is disrupted. Okay, so for example, if you stole somebody else's, you could severely damage your reputation. Apple and Samsung have done that to each other a few times and sued each other. Okay, fined and sued. There you go. Okay, forced to withdraw the product. Okay, if you look up on the internet, there is currently a car called something Wind, can't remember it off the top of my head. It's a Range Rover copy done by a Japanese company. They have been made to take it from production because it's basically stolen some of Range Rover's designs for their latest Range Rover. Right, some of the things I have not covered in full detail: authentication, encryption, firewalls, social engineering, malicious code, weak and default passwords. I kind of covered that. Misconfigured access rights, unpatched or out of date software. Okay, I've got a few more things to cover. You might want to look those up now in your own time. Okay, like I said, this stream is going on a little bit too long. I was hoping for about 30 minutes and I'm miles over that. Okay, penetration testing. Penetration testing is basically to test whether or not a piece of software has the capabilities of being secure, basically. It's basically penetration is basically trying to break into a piece of software, okay, or break into a piece of code to see actually if it is secure, if it's strong. There is two types that you need to know about. There is black box, okay. Black box penetration is basically, it simulates an external hacker or a cyber warfare attack. It means that the person actually the person that's attacking you doesn't have any inside knowledge of how the system works. They wouldn't know that you have a database called students. They wouldn't know that you use a blowfish encryption method on your PHP script. they wouldn't know that your password server is stored separately from your file server. Okay, they wouldn't know that you use two separate forms of encryption. So black boxes, they attack it, but they have no prior knowledge. And the idea is that if they are able to get in there, there's a major problem, because that means somewhere along the lines they've been able to expose it, identify those things that they didn't know, and get into the network or into the software. It's a risk. White box testing is tested from almost the inside. So it's what they do with white box testing is it simulates an insider, someone that knows that there is a database called students, someone knows that there is a table inside the database called username and password, and someone that knows that the encryption method was blowfish. But you don't need to know blowfish for your exam, that's just an example of a PHP encryption method. Okay? And what that means is that it's basically designed to see if somebody on the inside, i.e. someone that hasn't got as many permissions as you, so let's say there is an admin and a general user, it's designed to see if a general user is able to do things an admin can do. So for example, the admin is able to delete posts, ban people. It's designed to see whether or not that an internal user, by manipulating the code, such as a general user, is able to make themselves an admin or have admin control through some hacking method. Okay, that's the key difference. Okay then, for penetration testing, exactly what I just said, I don't need to cover that. Okay, right, don't log off yet because I need to add some stuff. I know that says thank you and we're done, but there's a few things that I missed that I want to go over. I'm just going to go back to there. So, if we look at social engineering, okay, phishing. Phishing is spelled P-H-I-S-H-I-N-G. Okay, that's P-H-I-S-H-I-N-G. Okay, not with an F. Okay, it's basically where you send an email out to somebody, okay, pretending to be something like Lloyd's Bank or pretending to be an insurance company. Okay, you can do it via instant messenger, and the idea of it is that you pretend to be a company, okay, and what you do is you gain sensitive information, okay, by deception. So there, if we go back and look at the laws just quickly for that, obtained lawfully for Data Protection Act, what I'm actually doing by doing phishing is I'm obtaining the information unlawfully, so I'm breaching the Data Protection Act. So phishing is sending out emails or instant messenger pretending to be another organisation to gain sensitive information. Write that down, it will be on your exam. Farming, okay? Farming is quite an interesting one, but what farming is where they install a piece of software normally on your browser. So when you type in things like www.facebook.com, you've typed the correct URL. But what's actually happened is the farming software will point at the browser to another website, i.e. a copy or a very similar looking website. So it's redirected it without you knowing. So it's redirected you to another location, and what that's done is you enter your details into a fake website, and then obviously they're getting them again through getting sensitive information through conning you into thinking you're at the official Facebook site or any other site. Okay, on to blagging. Blagging is normally done face to face, not normally done on a computer. Blagging is a scam where you impersonate someone, such as a delivery driver. So for example, someone could pull up at my house dressed as a delivery driver and say, oh, I'm here to collect your parcel. Okay, so I give them the parcel and off they toddle, and actually they weren't nothing to do with DHL or the post office. They are actually just a person that is there to scam me. The other reason they might do that is they might come and give me a parcel which has got nothing in it really, and get me to sign, okay, because then they've got my signature, okay, and then they're able to use my signature for buying various things if they've got previous details, maybe through another method. Okay, the last one is shouldering. It's kind of obvious. Shouldering is where you look over someone's shoulder and you watch them physically typing their password. Again, that is the Data Protection Act, because you're gaining their password, okay, unlawfully. Okay, by looking over someone's shoulder and watching them typing their password, you are gaining their passwords unlawfully. So what I'm going to do now is I have got something I just want to show you, which is the AQA specification from AQA's website. I'm just going to scroll down and show you what we have covered, and then I'm going to end this stream. Okay, don't log off yet, because what I want to do is make sure that you see everything that you've done. So we've covered LANs and WANs, we've covered PAN, star, buzz, we've covered ring, we've covered all of these, which is all of those, you know what those are. Authentication, you could probably do with looking that up, although I have covered the general basis of it. Encryption, you're going to need to know what a CSAT cipher is, okay, and a shift cipher, okay, another common name for it. Okay, firewalls, we've covered that. MAC address filtering, we've covered that in massive detail. We've covered all those, that's fairly simple. Covered all of those, okay. Blagging, yeah, we've covered that, we've covered that, we've covered that. Right, I haven't covered these. These will be your probably 9 markers, okay. I've covered them in generic, and a favourite of the exam board is this one here, okay. It's a big, big, big favourite, okay. I've just noticed that it doesn't seem like it's popping this on the screen, so what I'm going to try and do now is just screen capture that. There we go, it's popped it on the screen now. Apologies, I didn't realise that wasn't streaming onto the screen. It is now. So let's try that again, shall we? Cloud computing, that is the one that will be on there that I haven't seen, so hopefully where am I? I've literally just lost my flow of bottom there, right. Cloud storage, that is a favourite of the computer of the exam board. Have a look at that, okay. And we've covered wearables. That's pretty much it, okay. One thing I am going to say is we haven't covered that either, okay. Design, implementation, testing and evaluation, okay. You need to know that, okay. These are the steps in which when you create a piece of software you follow, okay. I'm going to cover those tomorrow for my students, so I'm not going to cover it now online. So obviously if you're seeing this now, you might want to cover that on your own now, okay. Unfortunately I have run out of time, and I could really do with logging off now. Just to finish this stream off, good luck for tomorrow is the key one, okay. I hope you've enjoyed today's stream. I hope it's certainly been helpful. One thing I am going to advise you to do is make sure that you write down notes. Make sure you turn up if you're taught by me tomorrow with a load of notes, because a lot of the stuff we will do tomorrow, I've only got 15 minutes, will literally just be notes, okay. Again, once again, thank you for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed it. So thank you very much, and I'm now going to end the stream.